This week is my first guest episode, and I'm so excited. We are talking with Emma Jack all about mindset and coaching and things that she has done outside of her physio education. So this is going to be an episode to remember, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Up in My Business. I am Lex. I am your host of this podcast here. If you're new, we are talking all things business and tech and life. I always start the episode off with a little bit of a life update, so I'm going to give you that first. Then we're going to jump into my first guest episode. So if you listen to, I almost said if you watched, this is not a video podcast, but if you listened to the first episode, you knew that I wanted to start this podcast because I wanted to bring on people that I get to work with and work alongside. And I want them to share their light with the world. And I just wanted to create that space. And that was a huge reason why I wanted to start this podcast. So having this guest episode be my first one, I'm super excited for it. It's definitely a process that we're going to refine a little bit. Having a guest makes it a little bit more difficult on my end because we recorded with video and I think some things got a little slowed down, but I think it sounds good. So we're good. We're good. So this will be fun. It's Emma Jack, and Emma and I work together, and I've also worked with Emma as one of her clients. So super, super excited about it. So you'll hear that shortly. But first, I'm going to go through some life updates. So first things first, I sent out an email to my newsletter mailing list on Friday, and I'm actually recording this on Saturday for a reason that I'll go over in a second. But so yesterday I sent out an email, and I just basically went over how I'm learning how to sing and my voice. I have so much more control over my voice in just a couple weeks. It's actually really, really fascinating to me. And most of it is just because I didn't know how to use my vocal cords in the correct way, I guess is what I would say. I'm obviously not a voice professional, but I wasn't using my vocal cords in the way that they're meant to be used. And I wasn't able to do certain shapes. And just by learning how to do certain shapes has changed my whole entire life. So I say my life, but I'm just able to sing better and I have way more control over my voice and I am enjoying it so much. So a couple people asked what I'm using. I actually did a ton of research on this because I was going to take in-person lessons, but that would have been like a long commute, all set with that. I'm already commuting for volleyball lessons, so I didn't want to commute for singing as well. So I did a bunch of research online and I found this program called 30-Day Singer. And I'm just starting with the beginner courses and then I'm probably just going to keep going. It's actually not that expensive. I want to say it's like a free month trial and then it's, I think $40 a year. $40 a month. So it's really not that bad. And you can take them as fast or as slow as you'd like, but take it from experience or from my experience, singing is actually quite difficult. So I actually have to rest. So I'll get through a lesson. And while I want to go through a bunch of lessons at the same time, I find that I actually can't because my voice is super tired for sure. But as far as like learning how to sing and learning how to match pitch and be able to harmonize, that's something you can learn. And I'm learning it and controlling the little muscles. It's just like anything else. So, you're not born being able to deadlift 300 pounds. So you train it and then you get there. And that's exactly what I'm finding with singing. So anyway, I wrote it off for a really long time for silly reasons. I made terrible assumptions that I could not change it. I was 0 for 3 on all the assumptions that I made. And I would just say that if you're looking to start something or you want to learn something, go do it. Go try it. And maybe you'll hate it. I did mention that I tried calligraphy a couple of years ago in that email and I absolutely hated it. I will never do that again. Like, God bless the people who like doing that stuff. But it just wasn't for me. So I tried it, didn't like it. If you've been trying or wanting to try something, I have people who have been emailing me back, people who started weightlifting, they've started dancing, they've started, there was someone who started drawing. Oh my gosh, there was another one that was really, really cool. I can't remember off the top of my head now. Anyway, a couple people had said they had started all these different things that they weren't doing prior. And I think it's really amazing that you're starting something so, that you wanted to do forever, right? So if you have something on your mind that you've wanted to do forever, I recommend you start doing it. This has brought me so much joy, so much confidence, and I feel great about it. I feel absolutely great about it. And I would advocate that you try doing something as well, because life is super, super short and you deserve to do the things that you want to do. It was dancing. It was tap. Jordana had started tap. So I thought that was amazing. Yes. Anyway. So yes, start doing things. You just lost my train of thought there. Here we are. Do things that make you happy. Do things that you have wanted to do forever, because it can bring you so much happiness. So huge advocate for that. Now I'm going to share the coolest news ever. I'm so, so excited. So a while back, so I'll start with HoneyBook. So if you've worked with me on any sort of project, you know that I send my invoices. I do all my project contracts, etc. through HoneyBook. HoneyBook is essentially a CRM for coaches, etc., with, recurring payment software, automations, contracts, billing, invoices, brochures, anything you could possibly need as far as like a service industry would go. It's a one-stop shop program. And back in like September of 2022, I applied to be a HoneyBook Pro, because HoneyBook has a program where you essentially apply to be a HoneyBook Pro. They look at like your credentials and they say, you fit the bill or you don't. And I didn't hear back, and I had thought like, whatever. I applied out of the sense of like, I really understand the system. I set up the systems for other people. I set it up for myself. I help other people on this system. Why not become a HoneyBook Pro? So I had signed up to do all that stuff and I didn't hear back. And then I got an email in late January saying like, hey, we want to interview you. You look like you fit our bill for a HoneyBook Pro. You use the program really well, which they probably saw like how I was using my account, because they can get into it just to see, are you actually using HoneyBook? And they were like, we want to interview you. We want to see if you can be a HoneyBook Pro for us. And I am now a HoneyBook Pro. So I think there's 56 of us across the whole world. So I'm one of 56 people in the world who are HoneyBook Pros. And I kind of like let that sink in a little bit, because on the interview they had told me like we had thousands of applications. And to hear that it felt really, really cool to be chosen to be a HoneyBook Pro amongst likely a lot of people just like me who help people set up systems and automations and all the things. And it just felt really good. And I wanted to share because I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited. I'm super grateful. And what that looks like is I'll just be featured on their public marketplace. So I don't pay them. They don't pay me. There's no monetary exchange there. It's simply just, I have proven to them and I've tested out that I can set up that software. I can help people problem solve things on that software, and that I use the software in the best way, shape, and form. So they have validated all of that for me. And then on my profile on HoneyBook, it basically says what I do for my business. So copywriting, SEO, websites, etc. So it's just essentially showing everyone that goes to HoneyBook, if they want to hire me, they can hire me through my business. So we, like I said, it's not a monetary exchange of any sort. So I just essentially am able to be featured on their marketplace. And to be one of 56 is just really, really cool. And I'm super, super thankful for it. And I'm so excited to see where it goes. I'm super, super grateful. So that was my big piece of news, my first big piece of news. My second piece of news, and you're going to hear this soon. I'm so excited. Jane App is officially sponsoring this podcast. So on my podcast and in my actual newsletter to my newsletter family, you're going to see some stuff about Jane App. So I think it's really, really important to address why I'm doing this. I was actually approached by them back in February to look into sponsorship in some way, shape, or form. It essentially looked however they wanted it to look, or however I could have it look. And then I started the podcast, and I had mentioned like, hey, I do have a podcast. We could potentially do that, sponsorship that way. But then they said yes, just recently. So this past week, we were kind of going back and forth on like what a potential relationship could look like. And we figured it out this past week. And that's why I'm recording today on Saturday, because I now have all of the podcast assets. So I can do all of the sponsorship stuff. So the way that you're going to hear all about Jane app more from me. And I think it's really important to address why. So Jane app is the documentation software that we use within Renegade at the clinic. And it's the documentation software that I recommend everyone uses. The reason why I love Jane, and this is why I decided to say like, yes, I'd be happy to be sponsored by Jane, because Jane is all about customer service. So Jane is all about customer service, customer relations. They're about building all those relationships. And for me, I have always valued Jane the most because of that. I have no fear that if I have an issue, I can call Jane right away. They'll respond. The team behind Jane has been the most helpful team ever to both myself and my clients. And they are always looking out for their end consumer, or, as far as the patients having a good experience with the software, as well as the clinicians who are using it having a good experience with the software. So I love Jane, and Emma, Jack, and I actually were talking about it before we started recording this specific episode. And we love Jane. Jane stands for everything that my business stands for. And I think it's a really, really great fit. So for right now, Jane has decided to sponsor this podcast. So you'll be hearing more stuff from Jane. And, if you're not familiar with Jane, I highly recommend you do like a free trial. I have a free code. You can get a free month. I don't receive money for the free month. So it's, you just get a free month of Jane, which who wouldn't want that? So if you use the code LEX1MO, so LEX1MO for month, that can get you a free month of Jane, but also just do a demo. Just do a demo of Jane if you're looking for an EMR software. The coolest thing that I think people don't know about Jane is that they adjust the price based on what type of clinician you are, meaning do you have one practitioner who works 5 hours a week? Cool. That price is going to be different than if you have one clinician who works 40 hours a week. So I think they're incredible to work with. So for what it's worth, and like I said, I think it is important to me to let you know why I am having this sponsorship through Jane, and why Jane is someone that I'm, gung-ho, hell yes, let's do the thing as far as partnering with them, because they are incredible. Jane is the best. So once again, you'll be hearing more about Jane in my ecosystem. And if you have questions, please let me know. But I'm super excited about it. I was talking to a couple people about this, and I just, I'm super grateful. I'm super grateful that Jane would consider sponsoring a podcast that has 10 episodes. And, obviously that says a lot about them as a company. And I'm just super, super grateful. So thank you for listening to that spiel, but also thank you for being here and listening to the podcast and all the things. It means so much to me. It really, really means so much to me, and all the DMs that I get, and the reviews that I've gotten. I truly, truly appreciate you guys, because it means a ton. It means a ton to me. So that's my 2 big pieces of news. I think that really covers my life updates. I really don't have too much, except for the fact that right now I'm looking out my window and the sun is shining, and I was able to wear Sperry's today and sneakers on my walk. It was the best. So really, I think that's it. No real big things this past week, except for, obviously the 2 things happening for Honeybook and Jane. But other than that, I think we're good. So you're going to hear from me and Emma up next. So just a little bit, I give you a quick background when we're talking, but Emma, Jack is my people. I love, love, love Emma. And I'm so excited for you to hear from her if you don't know her. And if you do know her, I think you're really going to love this episode, because she goes into stuff that I haven't really heard her talk about yet on podcasts or social media. So if you're familiar with Emma, I really, really hope you take the time to listen to this, because we just talk about things that she did not talk about elsewhere. And it just makes me so happy because I had asked her, Emma, it matters to me, what they want to talk about, what my guests want to talk about. And I said, hey, Emma, like, what can we talk about that you don't get to talk about enough? So really excited for this. I hope you enjoy it. Let's jump in. As we get started with another episode of Up in My Business, I'd like to take a moment to highlight our sponsor, Jane. Jane is a complete practice management software that makes it easy to book, chart, bill, and get paid all online. The team at Jane knows that getting paid is one of, if not the most important parts of running your practice. And with that in mind, they've created a fully integrated PCI compliant payment solution called Jane Payments. And that makes it super convenient for online payments for both you and your patients. With Jane Payments, you can collect credit card info through your online booking or intake forms, send one-click payment requests via email or text for outstanding balances, and you'll never need to leave Jane to reconcile payments. Curious to learn more, head to jane.app/payments. You can also use the code LEX1MO at the time of sign-up for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. I love Jane Payments. We use Jane Payments at Renegade and would never do it a different way, if I'm being honest. So if you haven't used Jane yet, or you use Jane, I would highly recommend checking out Jane Payments. And if you're not using it yet already, go get a demo with them. Let them show you exactly what payments are for. We love Jane Payments, so check it out. Welcome to another episode of Up in My Business. I'm so excited today because I have my first guest. Emma Jack is here with me, and I am super pumped because Emma and I started, let's see, when did we first meet?
I want to say we first met whenever you had just moved back from Alaska.
Really?
Yeah, I chatted to you before you guys had started your business, I'm pretty sure. So I was introduced to you through Shantae. Shantae was like, you have to chat to my PA.
Oh my gosh, yes, because you had a coaching call with me. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. So I don't know the timestamp on that, but like
Yeah.
2019
It was, yeah,
or
2020, beginning of 2020.
2020. Okay. Yeah.
That's wild. I forgot about that coaching call. Coaching call with you, and then I joined the mastermind. So if you don't
Yeah.
know Emma, I'm going to let Emma introduce herself, of course, but Emma is really involved. She's a physio. So Emma's a physio in Canada, and she has her own business as well. So Emma Jack is her own business, a coaching business. So I'm going to let her talk all about that stuff now if you're not familiar with her. So Emma, why don't you tell us all about you?
Oh, thank you. So, yes, I'm a physical therapist by trade, and I do still practice 1 day a week and see clients now out of my home. But my majority of my work now is actually working with other clinicians, other allied healthcare professionals. And that was really born out of I took a very different path in terms of my PT career. I experienced a lot of burnout early on, and rather than fleeing the profession altogether, I doubled down on figuring out how I could make PT work for me. And I shared most of that journey on Instagram. I wrote a blog as well. And through that process, I just started having clinicians reach out to me, being like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing what you're doing. How do I do that? I want to do that. Can you help me do that? And so, very organically, I started working with other clinicians, helping them figure out how to optimize not only their careers, but just their lives so that they were able, I think when we feel good, we show up for our life and career just that much better. So, um, now my full time job is working with clinicians and helping them figure out what's going to make them thrive, not only in their work, but also just in life in general. And I adore it.
So you're so good at it. So
Aw, thank you.
I do want to go back. So I know you're a physical therapist by trade, but you have a really rad background. Like the things that you've done. I will never forget when I was reading your bio, yes, on your website, but also I want to say it was a podcast you were on, and I was like, Emma did all this amazing stuff, and I don't even know it. So can you just briefly go over your physio background too?
Yeah. So yeah, it almost feels you know, working so much in coaching now, that side feels like such a different part of my life now. But I have had some super epic experiences as a PT. So, um, I had worked while I was in PT school, and actually during my undergrad, I was a student therapist trainer with the football team at my school. And so I was with that football team for actually 5 seasons. I worked with them. And I did go into physio school, pretty strong minded, although many of us do, thinking I wanted to be a sport PT. But that never changed throughout PT school. And so after PT, I did a fellowship at another university, which was a year-long fellowship where I had the opportunity to sort of work in the sport medicine clinic with varsity athletes, but then also get a ton of sport coverage time. So, that year I worked with football, I did box lacrosse, track and field. Like I got a lot of experience with different sports. And through that, and through like my own networking and connections, I've been so fortunate to have some really epic sport experience. I've worked with the Canadian national hockey team for, gosh, I guess I feel like I'm dating myself, but 10 years. I've been with them.
So
So with the women's Hockey Canada program, and so I've been able to travel to world championships with the team and get some international travel. I've worked major games, so like the Pan Am Games were in Toronto in 2015, and I was one of the medical leads there. And so I got some really cool experiences, and I think it's always such a balance, because as much as those were cool experiences, and I know it's if people are just starting out their career and hearing this or seeing other people do these amazing things, it's so important to remember that those things come with so many sacrifices. I look back on some of those times and some of those summers where I was with hockey the entire month of August. And so I was missing some of my girlfriend's weddings, or, I wasn't present at family dinners because I had to go to hockey practice. And so just knowing that, as much as it might look cool and sound cool, it also has to like feel good and feel right for you. And so I think, initially working in sport felt amazing and it was so fun. But it did hit a point where I was kind of like, I can't imagine living the rest of my life like this. I did sort of cap out there. I still do here and there, do a camp or, a couple weeks. But it is a lifestyle choice. And so, as much as I adore and I'm so grateful for those experiences, I also know that it is part of what led to so much of my burnout.
I was just going to say it's a perfect segue because I feel like all of that stuff really speaks to like where I was 2 years ago too, working God knows how many hours, making a lot of sacrifices to do what you want to do. But I feel like for you provide it's a really refreshing mindset as far as PT goes, because you've done that stuff, right? And then you've realized that this is not the way that I want my life to look. And instead, I'm going to do something about it and I'm going to create a life that really feels good for me. So, with that being said, I would love for you, because there's a lot of PTs, I think I have a lot of chiros too, which is amazing. A lot of health and wellness folks who
Yeah.
need you. And I really want them to know what it's like to work with you, because I have been there. I have worked with Emma. I did a mastermind with Emma, and her work it's very different in the best of ways, because you learn how to really sit back and understand what you actually want and what you want things to feel like. And I had never really been asked that question before. So I'm going to let Emma, just tell us exactly what it's like to work with you, because I want the people to know.
Yeah, so I think it's so important. So I by no means ever label myself as a strict business coach, because I will come out and say it. If you have desires to 10x your business, or grow into multiple locations, I am the first one to tell you I am not your gal. That is not my zone of genius. I think what my zone of genius is slowing people down enough to hear what they have to say to themselves. We know inherently what we need, what we want, what feels right, and what feels good for us. But I think where we get confused is everything that's happening outside of us. What society tells us we should do, what our colleagues are doing, right? We look so far outside of ourselves as to what the next move should be, what should make us happy. And I think my work is really trying to get people to tune that out and tune back into themselves and figure out, no, 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 no. What is it that I want and what is it that I need? Because no two career paths and no two lives look the same. Our needs aren't the same. Our values aren't the same. And so we really have to, I like to think I help people carve out their own path that makes them feel good. And again, when you feel good, I think you show up, for your clients, in your relationships, that much better. And that feels good too. So I think I'm kind of like the life coach for business.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
you. I feel like there might be a little bit of just an assumption around the work that you might do, like mindset work, and that you're not dealing with your own stuff, right? You're past all this stuff. So I feel like, are you still dealing with some of this stuff actively and trying to move past some of this still? Are you in the trenches with your people, or do you feel like you've got it all figured it out? I'm looking at
Oh,
you
girl,
because
girl.
we share a lot.
Yeah, I am in the trenches. I am
So
in the
are we all?
trenches. I don't think, I truly, to me, the work is never done. And I think it's so important as a coach that I am always growing and elevating myself, right? And not to see it as a constant project or that there's anything wrong with me. Um, but in order to be able to show up and serve other people, I have to always do my own work and clear myself in order to be good for myself first, but then also good for others. So absolutely, I'm working with two different coaches right now myself, and I'm continuously coming up against some of the same mindset blocks that were really strong 5, 6 years ago. And it's not that some of those like stories or like fear of judgment, fear of failure, perfectionist tendencies, people pleasing tendencies, I don't think it necessarily has to be or is true that they ever go away. But I think now I am able to see it in such a different light. I'm able to catch myself so much quicker. I have a better toolbox to be able to deal with those things. And so I think it's, I often say new level, new devil.
Yeah.
I think these, as you progress, it's almost like you're honing in or going deeper on some of these patterns. And I think that's definitely what happens. But I would so much rather be in this work and doing this work than where I was sort of 6, 7 years ago, where I didn't even see it. I was so overwhelmed, exhausted, burnt out. I didn't even realize I had these patterns or tendencies. And so I think I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think this is some of the most important work you can do for yourself,
Right.
which just spills over into others.
Well, and it's the same idea, right? So oftentimes, a lot of us go through our younger years, 20s, we're in school. And I feel like a lot of us work toward checking the boxes because everything around us is telling us that we need to check that box. But we don't take the time because you don't really have the time to check in with yourself and be like, do I actually want this thing? And then
Yeah.
you get to the end of it and you're like, well, I guess it's done. Now what?
And I think there's this perception that once I get here, I will feel this,
Yeah.
right? Like it's going to be better when.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, very quickly, you realize that no, life is happening now. It's not when. And so, how can we make today feel epic and amazing and in alignment, and not wait
Right.
for once I do this, once I hit that landmark or check that box. I was a master box checker.
Same.
You name the credential, I haven't, 100%. And it it can be really self-effacing to realize, oh shoot, I'm checking the boxes, but I just keep on, feeling the same or worse.
Yep.
And that is the work I love to do with people now.
I know. I was just going. But now, my question to you would be, I don't business ownership, right? So a lot of
Mhm.
people, I feel like you work with a lot of people who either want to own a business or already own a business, but are you also working with a lot of folks who are working in clinics that they're not the owner? They're just working there either part-time, full-time, whatever it may be. Maybe they don't have an end, like they don't want to open their own business. Do you also work with those folks too?
Yeah, totally. I would say it's a mix. It's either clinic owners who are maybe feeling like their business is not in alignment or something's not feeling right and good, and sort of sorting through that. It's helping people get started on opening their own clinic and figuring out what they want it to look like and feel like, and what will feel good for them. But then absolutely, I serve clients who work for somebody else but are just not feeling fulfilled, not feeling satisfied, oftentimes not really knowing, okay, what's next for me. And that's where, again, I actually did a post yesterday about, I had three different clients who all thought they wanted to open their own clinic. And, in finishing with all of them last month, they took three different paths. One did start her own clinic.
Yeah.
One decided to transition into public practice. It suited her life and her needs better. It was, steady hours, salaried pay. That's actually that security and safety was what she was desiring. And she realized, if I start my own thing, that's actually less secure and feels less safe. She didn't want that. So when she checked her stories, this was feeling really good. And then the other decided to leave the profession altogether and took on a role that she's really excited about. And so that's where, if we stick to the path, or check the next box, it can really lead us down the wrong path.
Yep.
And so really turning inward, hearing yourself, and trusting your own self is really important.
I am smiling because Emma has a track record, especially with our mastermind crew. So it was four of us, yes?
Yeah.
Four of us total. Yeah, it was four of us. I'm counting in my head and I'm thinking you, and I'm like, no, it's five. Um, and all four of us were essentially working for other people. And slowly but surely, everyone like kicked the bucket at their full-time job. We're like, we're opening our own thing. We're doing our own thing. We're doing our own thing. So Emma was 4 for 4 in that group. So we have like a
Yes.
running joke that Emma's tagline should be like, she helps people quit their jobs. Now, obviously, that's not what Emma would probably approve of for her headline, but we thought it was pretty funny. So
I
Emma,
would like to think of it as Emma helps you find deeper alignment.
yes, the whole truth. It's the truth. I will say that my experience with Emma is I went into my mastermind with Emma thinking, I remember she invited me and I was like, I don't think I'm a good fit. Like, I don't know if this is gonna work out for me. And because I was on a different
I love a person who comes to me so hesitant and
oh yeah.
skeptical.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the best.
I was like, I don't think this is gonna work. I don't know about this. And then Emma was like, no, like you need to do this. I have the perfect group for you. I was like, okay. So when we started, I actually was not full time in my business. So Emma, I was full time at a gazillion other
You
businesses
were full time everywhere else. Yes.
everywhere else. And I was like, Emma, I really don't think that this could be full time. Like, I really don't think I could do this. And I will say that Emma gave me the biggest vote of confidence and was like, listen, Lex, like, you definitely can do it. And it was about looking in and saying, why was I originally skeptical? Because that's what got me. I was afraid for sure, but I couldn't
Yeah.
even pinpoint why until you asked the question. And so I feel like a lot of people kind of navigate life having a lot of anxiety or just feeling really burnt out, but they don't even understand why. And having the skills to actually look inward, right? Which I don't think we're not taught that.
No, we're not taught so many of these things.
No.
Nor, I think, in society today is it talked about or cued. I think so much of our world today is focused on external voices, which like kind of meta because we're on a podcast right now, but like
Yeah.
listening to podcasts, looking out on social media, watching what your friends are doing. And it's not talked about of like, yeah, analyzing fear, not talked about a lot, right? Checking the stories you're telling yourself. Unless you're reading some Brene Brown, like this isn't something that's going to come up for you, nor are we giving the time and space for self-reflection,
Mm.
right? Our days are inundated with pop-up notifications, emails coming in, appointments, driving kids to sports. Like our days are full. If we're not intentionally creating the space to check in with ourselves, it's not going to happen. And so I think I am honored to create the space for people.
And you do it so well. So well.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
biased because you did it for me, but um so I have to ask because I wrote down a question and I want to know what originally got you into to doing this stuff like mindset. I feel like even
Mm.
when you're burnt out, right, you're in this space where you don't know what's next. So what got you into looking inward and getting past the burnout?
Yeah, truly, when I look back, it was a moment in time.
Mhm.
So I think I had been unhappy in my work for quite some time. No word of a lie, at least 18 months. But I truly, like, I viscerally remember it like it was yesterday. One Sunday night, I like always had the Sunday scaries, but this one Sunday night, I had a very intense panic attack. And I remember being on the bathroom floor and not being able to catch my breath and like being so just scared as to what was happening within my body at that time. And once I like came out of it and started to breathe a little bit deeper, the like overwhelming thing in my head was like, not this anymore. And
Mm.
from that moment on, I was beyond committed to making sure that that never happened again. And I did everything in my power to change my story and not let that be how I was going to live the rest of my life. I was doing some really epic things at that time that sounded really good to tell people, but that were actually feeling really shitty for me.
Yep.
And so I had to let that all go. It was, it's nice that it sounds good, it's way nicer if it feels good. So I took a leave from work. I traveled overseas by myself. And I spent, I think it was about 6 weeks between Iceland, Denmark, Sweden. And my only goal there was just to have so much fun every day. Where could I have fun? Where could I find fun? I like biked, I swam in the ocean, even though it was freezing. I, went to an amusement park by myself. Like I just let myself have so much fun. And I realized that like I hadn't been having fun. I
Yep.
hadn't been having any fun. I was so focused on my career, courses, credentials, making sure that I, was holding all of these positions and roles, and it wasn't fun, like at all. And so that was sort of the catalyst for change. And coming home from that trip, I did I mean, worked with a therapist, but it was really when I worked with a coach that I found I was actually making some progress forward. Therapy is so important and absolutely necessary as well. But I think I got out to a point with therapy where I was like, okay, I can't keep talking about what has been or what's been in the past. Like, I need to do something. I need to get into action and move forward. And, the coach I worked with during that time really held me to the fire of like, okay, you say you want to change, like what's the next step? Or like, how can we figure out for you what the next step is? And so that was really, really valuable. And that's when I started my own blog. That was like one of the things I was like, I need just like a creative outlet that's ironically not about PT, but that I can just like express myself. And so with that, I started my Instagram account and just started sharing, what was true and real for me. So sometimes it was recipes I would share. Sometimes it was PT things. Sometimes it was just about where I was at that time. And that's when I realized, so many other, especially women in healthcare, resonated with my story of burnout. And I was getting people reaching out to me saying, oh my gosh, thanks for saying this. I feel the same way. Or like, holy smokes, we seem like we're the same people. And I realized, at a certain point that I could help.
Yeah.
I had been there too. Like, I get it. It's hard and it feels lonely. And I knew at that point I was in a place where I could serve. When I was really in it, I didn't see anybody in our profession who was talking about this stuff. And I truly, this may sound really cliche, but I felt like that became my purpose.
Yeah.
Was like, let's have these conversations. Let's let it be okay that you checked all the boxes and you don't like that. You don't like where you landed. Let it be okay that, you've given too much of yourself to your work. Let it be okay. Like, it's okay. This happens, but we can also change the story.
Well, and I will be honest with you. I feel like the exact opposite was put on a pedestal in school. It was
Yeah.
like, this is the career you're going to have. This is what it's going to look like. This is what the clinics do, but you kind of just have to do. You kind of just got to deal with it. Like, this is just going to be your life. And I
It's like an
remember
acceptance.
it was
Like, you
awful.
should just accept it.
Yes, it was. That's exactly what it was. And I remember being in school and being like, this sounds awful. And I was 2 years in, almost done. I was like, this sounds terrible. And, no one had anything good to say about it. And instead of saying, like, okay, how can we fix it? Or maybe even just like, how can we confront some of the stress and anxiety? Because as students, we even felt it. And like,
Oh, yeah.
feel that. And I'm like, all of these people are unhappy in their job. Like, I'm looking at these people that I'm going to become in the next year. And I'm like, all of these people look so stressed out. And it was a realization that I actually didn't realize it for myself, but I knew that I wouldn't be in patient care for a long time,
Yeah.
just for like a multitude of reasons. But when I think about people who are doing it day in and day out right now and think that that is the only answer, like that they have to
Yeah.
deal with it because it's all they've ever been told, like it honestly breaks my heart because that's not the only way.
It's not the only way, and nor should we expect that everyone can fit into one mold. For some people, that model does feel good and they're okay with it and they're happy. And I love that. But know that if something isn't feeling good or feeling off, or you're like, does it have to be this way? The answer is no, it doesn't. You can let, PT, Cairo, whatever it is, you can serve people your own way and know that when you do it your way, it will serve people the best way.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Just being told that there is another option, you know? It's
Yeah.
just so it sounds so silly because when you're in it, you don't see it. You don't see it.
Right.
And then someone says it and you're like, "Oh my God." No, it's amazing because I definitely have people in mind that like just I know that they're in a workplace that's really tough. And I also know you exactly what you said is true as well. There are people that thrive in the environment that I would die in. And I love that for them because it's perfect for them. And I would not be able to do it. And I'm so glad that there are people that are like that because then, others can go do other things.
Yeah,
Uh
like how great is it that we are
right.
different? Thank goodness we are all different, and it's not judging yourself. Like, I remember I used to judge myself a little bit because the clinic environment I was in, you know, I looked around, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how do they have the energy to see all these people? What's wrong with
That,
me?" Right? I would question, "What's wrong with me that I can't hack it?" And it was
that.
nothing to do with me. It was just we were different and my needs were different and how I needed to operate was different. So, yeah, really, I would invite, if you're listening to this and this is you, think about, what would make your career more fun and easy, and why isn't it possible?
Boom, right there. I was waiting. Now, I want you to talk about what you're doing in the next 2 weeks. You're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
I want you to talk about that because I feel like that's a great place for people to start if they're not familiar with you. or if they're not familiar with their work. I mean, obviously Instagram is great and all the things, but I do think that that would be a great place if you're looking to get something started. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm running sort of a three-part workshop towards the end of April. It's called the Aligned Action Accelerator because I love alliteration. And I just find so many of us have these visions or ideas, whether it's a course or a workshop, a webinar, a group class or group program, a retreat, whatever it is. So many of us have these ideas and we just sort of sit with them. We're just sort of like, yeah, that would be cool. And that's kind of where it ends. And again, holding space for life is already busy and full. But I wanted to create a space where people could actually take their idea and get it into action and get some forward momentum, you know, feel like, okay, I'm actually taking this somewhere. So, yeah, we're gonna get started. The first date is April 22nd. We're having a 3-hour session where I'm gonna guide people step by step around everything. Who is this for? What are the outcomes of it? What do they need to know? What do they need to hear? How are we going to surprise and delight them? All of those things. And then I'll do a Q&A call on the Thursday, which I think is the 27th. And then we meet again 2 weeks later to chat about, how to launch it, how to actually like the practicality parts of it, and really feel like, okay, I'm doing something because, you know, it's also just the feeling of I'm actively doing something to change,
Right.
right? It feels really hard when you're like, I know I feel this way and I'm doing absolutely nothing different.
Yep.
Right? We can also have some stories around that. And so
Yep.
so many people I just see how it's just holding the space and getting them going. Right? You have the resources, you know what you want to teach. You don't need more knowledge. We just need to get you into action. And so that's really why I'm hosting this is I just want to help people take action on that thing that's on their heart. Because anything that's on your heart is there for a reason.
And this can be anything as far as something you're passionate about, not even physio related, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Love it.
I started running my mastermind groups when I was still a full-time PT. I was just on my heart to hold space for other clinicians, give them a spot where they could express openly, share, get some accountability. That was something that was on my heart to do. That's the other thing. You can do things that are not PT or not in the clinic. You have other skills, zones of genius, abilities. And so if you want to go host a retreat, like that's an option. Like all the options are options. I think it can be so easy, like you said, in school and once you get into career to think, okay, this is just what it is. And no,
Yep.
it we have so much autonomy, and not to say it's easy, but it's always worth it.
I love it. I'm gonna put the link to enroll in that. When's the last day for registration? Was it course?
So the last day for registration is the 19th of April. However, I will say there are only 3 spots left.
Oh boy.
So yes, I was
Oh
shocked.
boy.
I launched it. It's so funny just, talking about mindset things that still pop up. It's vulnerable to launch things. And even me launching this, knowing the impact it will have and how epic it will be, I was so nervous. I was like, what if nobody wants this? And truthfully, we're almost full. 4 days, I had, a dozen people sign up for it. So
You literally
yeah,
told me, you're
thrilled.
like, I don't know if I want to do this, but like, can you make the landing page? I'm not really
Right.
sure.
I know.
To do this. I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, it's currently Wednesday and this will launch on Monday. So if spots are not left and everything is full,
Yes. So if spots are not left, please don't let that be the limiting factor. Reach out to me. I love doing complimentary calls, discovery calls. So, and certainly I will. Now that I see how much people are interested and seeing that people want it, there was a lot of people who couldn't make this round, just the dates didn't work for them. So I think I will definitely run another one in this calendar year. So I would suggest also like, yes, we can meet and chat, but also get on my email list,
yes.
because that's where you'll hear about the next one.
And all the other good stuff. You always send out good
And all
emails.
the other good stuff. Yeah, we're always doing fun things around
Always
here.
good stuff. So to circle back and wrap everything up, you talked a lot about fun. So it was your joy, and you experienced joy for 6 weeks. I can't even, like, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, just it and me. I'm not going to do it, I don't think, but
Oh,
I want to do it. And I'm
Lex,
like, that sounds
Lex,
amazing.
this feels like a very similar moment of I can't make this a full-time business.
I
You
know,
have
right?
a story, so you have a story you're telling yourself about how you can't take
Oh
a
my God.
6-week vacation when you truthfully have like an absolutely nomadic business as
I could.
well. Like you could work and play at the same time. So check that story, girl. You're still talking to your coach.
I know. I know. I'm thinking about it and like that sounds awesome. And I picture like eat, pray, love situation. Like you're just like eating our way throughout Europe. Like it's just so funny. I would love to do something like that though. It sounds so fun.
I would like you to change that to I will do something
I
like that.
will do something like that. I
Yes.
actually want to do a cross country trip. Like that's my big thing. I would love to
Amazing.
do like a little circle. So we'll see when
Okay.
that happens. When.
Great
Uh,
language.
but with that being said, I want to know at this moment, what are you doing that's fun?
So I am actually hopping on a plane Friday morning to Costa Rica.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
I know. That's fun.
That's amazing.
That's fun. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm gonna do some yoga, surf, eat some really like yummy local foods, and it'll be amazing. So that's like immediately what seems really fun.
Amazing.
I'm super excited to have some other travel coming up. I'm going out to Vancouver in June, and I'm going to be hosting like an in-person meetup um, with some of my West Coast clients. Planning our wedding
I
is
was gonna say,
fun. Kevin and I, my partner and I, are getting married in September, so like that feels fun. Doing like the food tastings and like picking out the frostings, all of those things.
the decisions, man. The
So
decisions.
funny. Yes. Yeah. So that's sort of on a more global scale, but then like day to day, just like taking my dog out at lunch and playing fetch. I think, I know you have a doodle too, and I think there's such a good constant reminder of how much play is needed in our lives, right?
100%.
If I have one day where we don't go out and play fetch or run around the backyard, she goes stir crazy, and I think that's such a great mirror for me.
Yep. I
Yeah.
will say you were one of the people who had said to me, if you get a dog, it will be one of the best things for you. And I had said to you, I was like, Emma, I really don't think I can handle a dog. I was like, I am so busy. I can't handle a dog. And it was literally forced rest. And it was the
Exactly.
best thing that I've ever done. I honestly will
Yeah.
say, like, that dog is the best thing ever because exactly what you said. They remind you to play and it's forced rest. And by
Yeah.
rest, I just mean like get up from your computer, get up from what you're doing, like be mindful of like you can't like do other things while you're throwing a ball.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's
I think too, even just the walks we go on, I always make sure when we go on walks, I don't take my phone, I'm not listening to anything, and just that like uninterrupted time, I create the space to check in with myself. I think we need those reminders, and a dog is a brilliant mirror of like, they need to go out, and so you can't just sit at your computer 12 hours a day, and I think that's so important,
yes.
and some good accountability.
Yes. Yes, it is. So to wrap it up, can you please just tell everyone what your Instagram handle is, where they can find you, all that jazz, and I'll make sure I put it all in the show notes.
Yes.
Okay.
So Instagram is probably where I'm most active. Don't look for me on TikTok. So on Instagram, my handle's
Oh,
at Press Play Physio. And then website is emmajack.com. And yeah, I love nothing more than connecting with people. And certainly if you're feeling any sort of way about, the work you're doing in this world, I would love to connect because there's ways around and out.
and she has free 15 minute, free 20 minute,
20,
20. You're
20.
So 20-minute
I'm a
discovery.
talker, guys. I'm a talker.
Nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Go chat with Emma, see where you're at, and she'll give you the best path. Believe me, I went through this twice. She told me exactly where to go, and she's always right. So,
Yeah, you didn't want to make this a full-time business. You didn't want to get a dog. Look where we are.
I mean, you are literally like 5 for 5 at this point, so I cannot complain. It was such a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Emma. Thank you so, so much. And thank you, everyone else, for joining in another episode of Up in My Business. And I'll catch you next time.